What's up, everybody? So we're back on the shop with another Shop Talk Tuesday, and in this episode we are going to be working on the Farriers Rasp build. So this guy right here. Now, one of the things that we need to go ahead and tackle on this is getting the actual finish on the bevels. So we need to go through, get onto the 2x72 and grind off some of the heavier grind lines that we have in here, because all we've done so far is grinding the bevels with a 36 grit belt and a Scotch-Brite belt to smooth it out a little bit. So we need to go ahead, get on the 2x72 with I'll probably do a 120 grit belt and then go straight from that 120 grit belt to hand sanding. I might go a little bit higher than that. I don't know just yet. We're going to go ahead and get in it and start going from there, but the goal is to get a good portion of the grinding lines out with the 2x72 and then go ahead and come over to the vise and get some hand sanding done. And we'll probably start with a 220 grit sandpaper, go to 320 grit, then we'll go up to 500 grit, then 600 grit, and I'll probably leave it at 600 grit. I tend to get a pretty good finish at the 600 grit. We might even go up to 800 grit. We don't know just yet. So the goal right now though is get into this, start grinding away, start sanding away, and get a nice finish on here so all of those little triangles that are in here pop, as well as the file lines on the other side. Now, one of the things that we're going to be doing in the next episode though, I want to go ahead and show you this because I've had a few people ask me what handle material we're going to be doing. So before we get into the sanding and grinding part, I'm going to show you all this. We are going to be doing these two materials right here. So this is 1/4 inch thick G10 right here, just black G10, and then we're going to be doing some diamond wood. So this is a bunch of layers of maple that has been stained. It looks really cool whenever you actually start shaping it and doing all that stuff. But we are going to be doing a combination of these two materials. It'll be the black on the front, black on the back, with this in the center. So let's see how that goes. I don't know exactly which way I'm going to orient it. I don't know if I'm going to make it to where whenever we sand into it you start seeing all the layers, or if we're going to keep it to where you see all the lines. Don't know just yet. We'll start playing with that when we actually get into the, the assembly of the handle scale phase. So if you're wondering when that's going to be, it's going to be next week. That's when we're going to start focusing on the handle part of this knife. So you'll have that. There'll be a whole episode dedicated to doing a multi-piece handle. We won't be attaching it in that episode. We'll be just focusing on what we need to do to make a good set of handle scales to be able to put them on a knife. So that's what we're going to do in that next week's episode. But for this episode, we need to get into some grinding and some hand sanding. So let's go ahead, let's jump into it. Let's get this thing knocked out. So that's where we're at right now. We're going to keep going a little bit longer on this just to get, like I said, as many of those deep grinding lines out. You can see a few of them along the edge right here, a little bit up here towards the top here. Most of the flats now are already smooth, but we're going to go ahead and finish with this 80 grit belt and then go to a 120 grit belt, and we'll end on that. But I just want to highlight something here. Whenever I'm going through this and I'm making these passes, I am barely putting any pressure on this belt. I am letting the belt do all of the work. All I'm doing is just trying to keep my hands steady, make nice consistent passes as I'm going through, and focusing on where I need to focus. The reason why I'm able to do small areas like this and I'm not creating a bunch of trouble spots is because, again, I'm not shoving this into the belt. I'm letting the belt do the job, and I'm just pulling past and slowly working that material off of there to be able to get a nice smooth flat surface just like that. So that's the goal there. Let the belt do its job. You're just making passes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go a little bit longer on this, then I'm going to switch to that 120 grit belt, and we'll come back on it. So I'm going to get going with this some more.
Content. Now it just begs the question, like, what is the role of these platforms? What is our role? Do we have a role, or are we just making fun content that is rather and not?
This was a good, podcast type thing to watch while I'm doing the hand sanding. Knife makers versus the internet. Just listening to it while doing my hand sanding. So put that on pause for a minute. Now what we're gonna do, like I said, we're gonna start with our 220. There we go. Start with our 220. Go up to 320, and then we're gonna go up to 400, then we're gonna go up to 600. So that's the goal with this. And during this process, I am going to be, of course, using the trusty Windex, spraying it with it, and then I'm going to be using my pad that I typically use here that has a soft side on one side and a hard one on the other, which these are just things that you can get from any automotive store or Walmart. They're not exactly an applicator pad, it is a sanding pad, but I'm going to be using the harder side and sanding this. We're going to end up actually making it to where there's a flat area and a bevel area. We're actually going to just smooth that edge where the bevels meet the flats and round everything over so that it's one nice smooth transition and not a hard transition, because we want everything to flow real well together. So that's what we're going to be doing on this. And I'm just starting with the 220 grit, and all I'm doing is just wrapping it slightly around to one side and then around the bottom, and then we are going to be coming across and just sanding straight back and forth for this, because all my grinding lines are going this way. I want to cross over those and make all the sanding lines go this way, and then on the next sandpaper, or the next grit, the 320, I'm going to go at a different angle and then smooth it all the way out. And then on the next one, I'm going to go at a different angle and then smooth it all the way out. And then on the 600, we're going to be just working our way out to get it nice and sanded smooth. So that is the goal for this. This is not a wet dry sandpaper here. All of the rest of them are. These are all wet dry. You can see right here, paper. So that's what we're going to be doing with that. The really low one doesn't really matter that much, and it's going to be just fine. But if you're going to be using something like a Windex, try and use a wet dry sandpaper. It makes it a lot easier on you, and the sandpaper doesn't break down as fast. So we're going to go ahead and get into sanding. Now, if you're wondering why I use Windex, it keeps the sandpaper from gumming up really fast and makes sure sandpaper lasts longer. So now as we're starting to wrap this up, we're going with our 600 grit. We already went through our other sandpapers, but now we're doing our 600 grit, and we're just going to go even passes all the way through. We're not trying to stop here in sand. We're wanting to go far past any of the sanding parts where we would have stopped before. And this is going to make it to where we don't have those weird start-stop grinding lines or sanding lines in this blade whenever it goes time to buff it. All right. And there is our finish. Now I could easily leave it like it is right now, and that would be a good finish. It's a nice satin finish, but I am going to go ahead and buff it so y'all can see what that looks like. So, side that has the grinding line still, side that is fully sanded. Alright guys, let's go ahead and wrap this Shop Talk Tuesday up here. We just got done doing a ton of grinding and sanding and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to the Shop Talk Tuesdays where I do a lot of hand sanding, there isn't a whole bunch of super interesting things that I'm doing during that. Most of it is very repetitive. It's just me hand sanding. I give y'all the highlights and stuff like that, but it's not a whole bunch of just, you know, B-roll me just hand sanding. That would just be a weird, kind of uninteresting video because there's nothing super interesting about hand sanding. But for this, I am going to recap what we did. We ground it down to where we wanted to be, which was 120 grit belt on the 2x72, getting rid of a lot of those real deep 36 grit grind lines. And then we went over to the workbench and started hand sanding. 220 grit, 320 grit, 400 grit, 600 grit. That was the different types of hand sanding sandpapers that we did. Sanding grits? Yes, that we ended up using on this to achieve that finish right there. Which is not exactly a mirror finish, but it's not a satin finish either. It's that fine line in between there to where you have a nice finish that will last. Plus, you get all of that cool just texture in there with the triangles from the Farriers Rasp. Man, that is just absolutely awesome and what I was trying to achieve there. So we ended up using the buffing wheel and used a gray compound and then a green compound in order to get to this particular finish on here. And I'm really excited about this, but I want to know what y'all think. Do y'all think that this was the right finish to put on here? Do y'all think I should have done something a little bit different? Is this what y'all would have done? I want to know. Let me know in the comment section down below. But guys, that is the end of this particular phase of this build. Now, in the next Shop Talk Tuesday, we need to work on the handle scales for this knife. We're going to be doing, again, some segmented scales with black G10, the 1/4 inch thick stuff. Plus, we're going to be using that diamond wood as, I would say, kind of like an inlay, but I don't know exactly which way I'm going to do it. Whether I'm going to lay it down flat with the lines going even with the actual G10, or if I'm going to do them vertical. I don't know. We'll talk about that more in the next Shop Talk Tuesday. But for this one, that's the end of it. So if y'all would, give this video a thumbs up, share this video or one of my other videos. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe. At 25,000 subscribers, we are doing a giveaway, so be on the lookout for that. Thank y'all for coming by. Thank y'all for spending your time with me. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there. I'll catch y'all next time.